Hi from the farm kitchen. Today I thought I would use some of our squash and make a butternut squash soup for pressure canning to store for winter. So I have some butternut squash that I've peeled and taken the seeds out of. I've got 2 apples that I've peeled, 3 ribs of celery, and this is some small delicata squash that I've peeled and taken the seeds out of. This is from our garden, and the delicata squash just didn't get that big this year because usually they're bigger than this. But I've got that gourd, like I said, and peeled. Handful of carrots, this is 5, they're small. And then a couple small onions. So what we're gonna do is I'm going to chop everything and leave the squash for last, because the squash is going to get blanched for just a couple minutes, because you are going to cut it into 1-inch cubes. Now you cannot puree and then pressure can and have it be safe. So you have to leave the butternut squash in chunks. And so that's what I'm gonna do. And 1-inch cubes are best. Okay, so carrots over there. Now, I also just wanna say, I've kinda got 2 things going at once here. I don't like to waste anything in the kitchen. And so when I peel vegetables and when I have leaves or extra pieces from the celery stalk, I use it. And you can make an amazing vegetable broth from your veggie peels and veggie scraps. So in this pot to my left here, I have the peels. I have the peels from the squash. I have the peels from the onions, peels from the carrots. I also put the inside, the seeds and the kind of goo from the inside of the butternut squash in there as well. And I also put a couple teaspoons of peppercorns and some salt in there. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to pressure can some vegetable broth. And I'm also going to use that as my liquid to pressure can the butternut squash soup in for a richer tasting soup. And you can just use chicken broth, and some people use water, but if you're going to use water, I recommend putting a little bit of chicken bouillon in each jar for added flavor. So I'm just going to keep chopping here. And I'm just cubing everything up. Cut the ends off the celeries that are kind of brown and yucky, and then just... Now butternut squash, typically we don't eat it chunky. We puree it, but you're going to can it chunky and you're going to puree it later. Hi Wyatt, that's my 5-year-old peeking in here on the video. Onions. I never like to do just one thing at a time in the kitchen, so I also have the pressure canner heating up over here. And while I'm prepping all of this for pressure canning, we made for Bible study the other night, we made a delicious, it was so good, had a bunch of peppers and onions from the garden, spaghetti and meat sauce. And that is safe to pressure can. It pressure cans for at least 110 minutes for a quart, so 70 minutes. at 10 psi, or if you're using the weight, the 10-pound weight. I have an all-American pressure canner, which I just love, and it's the larger capacity one, and so I can do 14 quarts at a time, which just saves so much time. I don't like to have to do batch after batch, especially pressure canning, because it has to cook for so long and requires monitoring. So I've got that in there, and it's coming up to heat. And once that's boiled, you let it vent and steam for 10 minutes, and then put the weight on. And then once the weight is on is when your timer starts. So I've got several things going at once. I'm chopping the vegetables for this. I've got the pressure canner going with the spaghetti sauce. I've got the vegetable broth, which I'll use for this, as well as any extras. I'll just go ahead and pressure can that as well. Oh, that was making my eyes water, that onion. Hello. And then any scraps that don't go in my broth go in my compost bin, which really ends up being pig and chicken food, not compost, because pigs and the chickens just love the scraps from the kitchen. I've got a pot of water set to boil over here, and that's where we're going to blanch the squash. So let's get this squash all chopped up. And it just needs to blanch just for a bit so it can get heated through. If you ever have doubts about, length of time for pressure canning, what you can and cannot pressure can, Ball has a great book. They update every so often. I have the latest version. It tells you what needs pressure canned, what doesn't, what needs water bathed, and it's just a great resource to have in any kind of prepper homestead kitchen if you are going to be preserving your food. And if you're following along with us, this is kind of a new, I've been water bath canning for a while. I've made jellies and salsas and relishes. Pressure canning is a fairly new thing for us, and I'm just super excited about it. We pressure canned some ham and bean soup that we made from this delicious ham bone we had from some leftover ham, and it is just delicious. And we made the leftovers made 13 quarts, and we made a bone broth from the ham bone that literally sat and simmered for like 3 days and made this super rich bone broth that I was just thrilled with the rich color of. And so we really try and not let anything go to waste. But we're just really kind of loving this homestead lifestyle, growing our own food, utilizing everything, no waste. Any kitchen waste really gets turned into chicken or pig food, which in turn gets turned into food for us in the form of eggs and pork and more nutritious meat. So it's been kind of fun. I love butternut squash soup. It's like one of my favorites for fall. But just cubes just like that work perfectly for this. And I'm going to can only quarts. Some people might want to can pints if you have a smaller household, but I have 5 mouths to feed every evening. And we also have company a lot, so I like to can in quarts. The other thing that I've got going in the oven, yes, I've got too many things going on at once today. I picked a bunch of red peppers, jalapenos, some serranos, and I'm going to make a roasted pepper jelly. And if you've never roasted pepper jelly. It is so good. It's amazing on, like, over top of a cream cheese or goat cheese. My fave, love goat cheese. Maybe someday we'll have goats. We can milk our goats and make goat cheese. Aspirations, right? We all have them, hopes and dreams. So I'm just gonna keep chopping, speed this up for you. Okay, so I've got the squash all cubed up, all my other veggies are all cut up, and water is almost boiling. As soon as this gets to a rolling boil, I'm gonna put the squash in there and let it blanch for just 2 minutes just to heat it through. And then the squash is gonna go all back in with the vegetables and get stirred up. And then that's all gonna go into my quart jars. And then we're gonna cover that with a boiling veggie broth. And then from there, we will get those, I'll show you how to get those in the pressure canner. Okay, so I've got the squash all cubed up, all my other veggies are all cut up, and water is almost boiling. As soon as this gets to a rolling boil, I'm gonna put the squash in there and let it blanch for just 2 minutes just to heat it through. And then the squash is gonna go all back in with the vegetables and get stirred up. And then that's all gonna go into my quart jars. And then we're gonna cover that with a boiling veggie broth. And then from there, we will get those, I'll show you how to get those in the pressure canner. Okay, so my water's boiling, so I'm gonna get this squash in my water here without burning myself. Easier said than done, huh? Was blanched for 2 minutes, and I drained them there in the sink in a strainer, and I'm just going to add them to these other veggies. I love the rich color of the squash. And then we're just going to give those a little stir to incorporate everything, and then we're going to start adding them to our jars. Together. The other vegetables are smaller, so for this recipe you don't have to blanch those. But you want to mix it up so that each jar kind of gets an even mixture of vegetables and squash. And I did just realize there's one thing that I still need to put in this mixture, and that is garlic. That would be pretty sinful not to put garlic in butternut squash soup. And we love garlic. It is so good. It goes in everything. Oh, I have a splinter on my finger. Every time I stir it, it pushes the splinter in further. Almost dead life right there. Splinters. Okay, I'm gonna set this aside. I've got some garlic here, and I'm chopping it real quick. I find the easiest way to peel garlic is to have the cloves, and then you just take the flat side of your knife and just push down with the palm of your hand until it kind of smushes it just for a second. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do 3 cloves of garlic. There is some garlic in my vegetable broth. And we're just going to mince this up real quick like, and add it to our big bowl of vegetables. We don't eat that many vegetarian dishes in our house, but butternut squash soup in the fall, oh my gosh, it's just so delicious. Some people do kind of more savory, which is what this is. This is more savory. Some people like it to be a sweeter soup. I love it with a little cream and hot sauce in mine. I like spicy. So we puree it up, kind of swirl a little cream in it, swirl a little hot sauce in it, serve it with some fresh made bread, like that roasted garlic rosemary artisan bread I made the other day. Oh my gosh, so good. Okay, so I've got that garlic all minced up. I'm going to take that over on my knife. Okay, so my garlic's in there. I'm going to give that a little stir again. Now the garlic is there. Now I'm going to get my funnel. I'm just going to kind of funnel this into jars. I know it's not liquid, but I would spill a ton if I didn't use the funnel. Okay, I got that garlic all mixed in. I found a rogue squash seed, so I took that out. My pressure canner with the spaghetti sauce is sizzling. That's the weight jiggling. When you're pressure canning, you want to hear that weight jiggle 1 to 4 times a minute. It's doing it a little much. I'm going to turn it down. Oh, I got my funnel. We use a ladle. That's kind of the easiest here. Just kind of ladle all the bits in there. Give that funnel a shake. Just making sure that I'm getting all the good stuff in this jar. Make sure we'll have an inch ahead space when I add the liquid. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. These onions are getting me crazy. Woo-hoo. Mash that down a little. Some jars might get a few more onions than others, but that's okay. I might have more than 6 quarts here. I was thinking it'd be 6, but let's see what we end up with. Too many in that last one. Well, maybe not. That's probably okay. Just add a couple here and there once you've looked at your headspace. Don't like that piece had a peel on it, so I went ahead and removed that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get one more jar real quick. Oh yeah, this is gonna be perfect. Perfection. Doesn't get much better than that. I love it. Perfect. Okay. I need these bowls out of the way. Cutting board. Bring these into your view so you can see how delicious look. All full of vegetables. So good. So I've got 7 quarts there. Okay, now I'm going to strain this veggie broth that I made. It smells really good, you guys. So I've got a fine mesh strainer to strain out any particles, so we'll wind up with a completely smooth broth. Be really careful when you're pouring these big pots. You can see all those awesome peels in there. Okay, that's good. So I've strained all that. Let that drip a little. There's the color of this broth. Is awesome. Move this over here. Okay. Now I'm going to get that funnel again. And this is just boiling. You want it to be boiling. Or have just been boiled when you add it to your broth. Add in that beautiful golden broth. Look at this broth, you guys. It's just gorgeous. You probably can't see the color too well in the video, but it is a beautiful vegetable broth. And what's cool is you can literally make that vegetable broth and have it be done while you're chopping your vegetables. So you peel your vegetables, piece of peel in there. You peel your vegetables, get that all in the stock pot with some water, and let it simmer and boil. Jars. I might not have any veggie broth. Hope we can. But the great news is we peel vegetables all the time, right? So I save some for the chickens. I save some for the pigs. And then I always save some for us. Because not only do our veggie scraps and veggie fills great for vegetable broth, they're great to enrich the flavors of chicken broth, any kind of bone broth you're making. They enrich the color and they enrich your flavor, so you have a more well-rounded broth when you put veggie scraps in it. Checking out my headspace. And then I take, I might have about a quart there left of liquid to make 1 quart of veggie broth. And I'm probably going to go ahead and do that because I don't like to waste anything. Get that in here. Perfection. You guys, how perfect is that? Okay. Now, super important. Clean towel, paper towel, regular paper towel. Dip it in white vinegar. Clean off all the tops of your jars. So The white vinegar helps break down any sugars from the vegetables that might have spilled on a lid or anything really. And these are gonna seal up nicely. Grabbing my lids. Two regular mouth lids. Something's getting right behind me. And fingertips around those guys. Ooh, okay. Jars are very hot because my liquid was boiling. Whew. I just want to show you really quick. That's really hot, but that's a vegetable broth. Look at how rich that looks. It's just so delicious. And again, there's peels from the butternut squash, the delicata squash, carrot peels, celery leaves, onion skin, garlic, so good. And a little salt and some peppercorns too. Just finger tighten all these. Alright, these are ready to go into the pressure canner as soon as that spaghetti sauce comes out.